Welcome to the Life Self-Mastery Podcast, where we bring in entrepreneurs who have created online businesses and improved their lifestyles. Here's your host, Rohit Malhotra.
Hi everyone, this is Rohit from Life Self-Mastery, and today I'm excited to have Christina Lopes, who's the founder of One Health company, where the main product is FidoCure. FidoCure is a leader in precision medicine for dogs, and the team is committed to the breakthroughs in cancer biology to evolve canine cancer care. FidoCure delivers advanced diagnostics and information and facilitates access to precision medicines. They have raised $10 million in financing from Polaris partners and from Andreessen Horowitz, Y-Combinator, and Dow Ventures. Christina did a master's in international affairs from Columbia University and doctoral coursework from Princeton University. And a big thanks to Amit Kark from Dow Ventures for the introduction. Welcome to the show, Christina.
Thank you for having me, Rohit.
Awesome. So, I understand that you were in Brazil and then you moved to US. What got you interested in startups, and what was your initial journey all about?
So I've always been very entrepreneurial at heart, and everything I worked on were kind of like a bit obscure problems or problems that were really large unmet needs, but that hadn't really become an asset class or kind of very visible. So, I had spent time in women's health. I'd been working in developing countries. I'm from Brazil, and always kind of looking to see how could I bring capital and technology and resources to problems that were very worthy, but folks just weren't really, paying attention to. So I've always been that person looking for, I always called it the wedge, something that's not clearly identified. So that's one thing. And then within that, I've been a self-starter, that kind of spirit. I like creation, and matched with mission of solving real problems. So that kind of is how, long story short, I got to where I am.
Got it. And what got you really interested to, solve problem for cancer for dogs, and what got you get started for FidoCure?
I think so. My co-founder is a veterinarian. So, kind of the initial, call it unmet need problem came really from him. What fascinated me was a disconnect on one hand of the role of the dog as a, beyond even best friend now, really family member. And sadly, the insane cancer rates. So 1 in 3 dogs will die of cancer. It's the number one disease killer for dogs. So sad. 6 million dogs were diagnosed in the US alone last year. And just for context, that's compared to about 2 million people. So it's, smaller population, much higher rate. So the incidence and prevalence is super high. And when I looked under the hood, I noticed that the type of care that dogs are getting was just really outdated. I would honestly say it was kind of broken. Really toxic, old-fashioned chemo, very expensive, very time-consuming. And on the other hand, most of the innovation this century, 21st century in oncology, call it like, any species, especially mostly for humans, right, has canine data, because most of the therapies were tested on dogs. These were probably lab dogs, not, pet dogs that I'm talking about, but still dogs. So part of me thought, hey, could we shift the dog from a subject, that's being tested on in this cutting edge R&D into a patient so they actually benefit from it, right? So really closing this arc. So that's kind of got me excited and gets me excited every day.
Got it. And how do you go about bringing cancer care for dogs? What are the phases that FidoCure works on?
Sorry, can you say it one more time?
How do you go about bringing cancer care? What are the phases in which you work so it becomes curable for dogs?
So, cancer is a really tough disease to tackle, right? In the human or any species, very multifactorial, right? There are genetic components, there are environmental components, immunological components, nutrition. I mean, there's so much. So we are focused on at the molecular genomic level and bringing in really personalized medicine or precision medicine, from the point of view that's been, widely accepted in the scientific body, which is that, every patient is unique, and sadly, so is every cancer. So we really go into instead of generic or one size fits all treatments, really try to see what's driving that dog's cancer at the molecular level. So we do a DNA test of the tumor, just like, one would at a top cancer center for humans. And then with the results, we analyze the results and we see what are potential therapies from targeted therapies. So again, very 21st century approach where they are what they sound like, targeted, meaning if chemo and radiation kind of zap the tumor and the bad cells, but they also zap good cells, targeted therapies are much more intended to go at what may be driving the cancer. And so we help enable those therapies for dogs. And we think the beauty of what we're doing is that because dogs are much more genomically clustered, because think of breeding, right? So all these breeds, while on one hand, we love certain physical and personality traits that come from the breeds, it also breeds cancer. But that gives us an opportunity to use these tools that have been developed in a much more efficient way than even maybe, it might just be that this helps dogs even more than humans because, humans, as we know, are so heterogeneous. So dogs are 10,000 times more homogeneous than humans. So we can really use these tools in a much more effective way. And our aim is to, basically turn around cancer from a death sentence into, a manageable disease.
Interesting. And how many dog patients have you worked for in the past?
So to date, 1,135 patients, and that's since January of 2019. So we're working in the U.S. We have some folks that are, France, Mexico, Canada, but mostly U.S. for now. And we are working with 30% of the U.S. veterinary oncology community, which is great. And so, we hope to do much more as we generate data and get our results out there.
And are there any positive results for the dogs since you've been using the sequencing of the human trial? So, I'm wondering, are there any positive results?
Oh yes. So our early data in one of the biggest disease, cancer tumor types for dogs is called hemangiosarcoma, or some will call it, cancer in the spleen or splenic cancer. It's very aggressive in dogs. There's a human corollary, cancer called angiosarcoma. And in dogs, this disease state, it's again, really interesting to us because it is aggressive, prolific, and there are not many tools. There's not much, it's a real unmet need, maybe the largest unmet need in veterinary medicine. And we are able to, when we enroll the patients and genomically characterize the tumor, and then are able to add targeted therapies, our early data indicates that we can help patients live longer and with higher quality of life.
Interesting. And what is the average cost today for cancer treatments for dogs, and what is the cost for FidoCure if somebody takes your option?
Great question. So Cancer care for dogs is sadly quite expensive. Care Credit here in the US quotes on their website that it's between $6,000 and $10,000 on average, which can be pretty weighty. And so what we aim to be is we partner with the clinics, so they ultimately are the ones who price, but our aim is to be at the bottom or lower than the average chemo price.
Mailman is an email assistant that shields you from unimportant emails, minimizing interruptions and making your days calmer and more productive. You can visit mailmanhq.com and use the code LSM, which gives you the benefit of 15% off for the first year on the annual plan, which already has 20% discounted compared to the monthly plan. So you can visit mailmanhq.com and use the code LSM. It's a revenue model about treatment, or do you also, earn income from prescribing and from other diagnostic tests and all that? I wanted to understand what is the revenue model behind.
The what? Sorry.
What is the revenue model behind FidoCure? Christina, I wanted to understand what is the revenue model, and have FidoCure made any revenues in the past year or so?
Sorry, I lost you there a couple of times, but I think I heard you. So the revenue model,
Okay.
So we essentially we're paid B2B by the clinic. So that's
okay.
one angle, and we have a test, and then we provide access to the therapy. So we enable that access through a pharmacy partner. And so we essentially, for all of this kind of end-to-end and support and education, we collect two different fees.
All right. And what are your customer acquisition channels, if I may, about how did you get the patients? Are you focusing more on B2B channels, or also looking at B2C channels as well to get more customers?
Yeah, we definitely use both channels because it's just really powerful, right? For pet parents, this is their baby, so they're huge advocates. So it's really important, and they're looking for information. And then it's also super important to support and equip the clinicians, right, who are really the frontline heroes, even amidst COVID, going to the clinic and taking care of these most vulnerable patients. So both are really important, and education goes a long way, right? This is a new paradigm. It's not new for humans. It's pretty proven in humans, but it is new for veterinary medicine. So we, really try to do as much as we can in terms of thought leadership and education to the clinicians, so to the clinic.
Right, and you have a very interesting model, but are there other competitors in your space?
Not with the approach that we've taken, because we're almost like in the human, like equivalent in the human space would be like foundation medicine. Like a really full one-stop precision medicine approach. There are folks who do just the test. The key thing, though, is for us, because we had a first mover advantage and we're collecting the data of the patient journey so copiously, we really can learn and almost we have a continuously learning cancer care system. So we start to see what works, what doesn't work, what are the characteristics, and basically we can then evolve the entire journey adapted to that. And our space has been really a space where the information is limited and they're really low numbers. So, there are studies and things and by really top folks and top universities, but they're just kind of like small numbers, right? Where we're coming in with, one poster we presented at the Veterinary Cancer Society. We're looking at, 455 patients and clinical, safety indicators. And then another conference, AACR, which is one of the top for human cancer, actually, we looked at 822 canine cancer patients and, the characterizations of their tumors. So we're just doing things at such bigger scale and learning so quickly so we can iterate that it kind of puts us in a perpetual first mover advantage as long as we keep this flywheel going.
And wanted to understand, who else is in your team since you've raised the money, and what does the money need to be used for?
Number one for the science, because with that, right, we can show our results, our data, and then that helps build trust and move us towards standard of care. And so that's a really big need. We obviously awareness, right? Folks have to know you exist. So that's a pretty big component. So between just the scientific body, the credibility, and awareness, that's like the bulk of it. And then, of course, we're based in Silicon Valley, so we're very aware of user journeys and delighting the customer and making it just, something easy and intuitive. So we're constantly trying to improve the client experience, especially at the clinic where they're so overloaded and doing so many things. So we're super mindful, right, of how can we make this be as close to the clinic workflow as possible.
Got it. And since we in the midst of the COVID, wanted to understand, how do you look at imposter syndrome and self-doubt, because you're working from home and there are a lot of challenges, and how do you remedy it because of once you run a business, there could be a lot of self-doubt, and a lot of listeners are looking to build the companies on their own. What do you think about imposter syndrome and self-doubt today?
Definitely isolation, right? Everything in a vacuum is tougher. And we do miss that feedback loop of having folks, giving us feedback with the team, right? There's some energy in that everyone working from home, it gets tougher. I feel personally lucky in a way that I'm very surrounded by a community. That is why we are here. In terms of founders. And so I'm quite in touch and I feel supported by our own little kind of pod. And so that's been super great. And then building an incredible team feels super supportive. But we are a distributed team. So we have folks everywhere, and some folks in places where there's more isolation. Yeah, we really worry, because if you're feeling isolated, you might. It's interesting you say imposter syndrome. I hadn't thought of it like that, but I could see how folks could feel just disconnected, right? And kind of like, what do we, and lose a little bit the inspiration that you get from being more, tightly in community and having feedback loops and connected. So it's really interesting how you framed it. I don't know if I have a solution, but I guess just, try to, amidst social distance, try to create other ways to connect.
And I think imposter syndrome could be an issue for a lot of younger founders also, because they're always rethinking themselves about what they have achieved and should they be in the right place and all. So that's why I thought you, since you're an accomplished operator, so I thought be right for him to talk about it. I quickly want to do the top three. What's your favorite business book?
So it's really funny because I have not read that many business books in my life. So I just really haven't. I come from a more, literature background. And so I would say that I'm very inspired by folks who had different paradigms of thinking.
Today I have an interesting stat for you to denote that the founder of Beautiful Lives increased the social media presence by 10x. They managed to publish consistently and effortlessly using a robust social media management tool called Social Pilot. Social Pilot is a cost-effective social media tool that helps businesses scale their social media marketing efforts. Use lifestylemastry.com/social pilot to get a 14-day free trial.
I love this author, Emerson. It's an American author. And his, if I fail today, I'll succeed tomorrow. He's from the 1800s and really gave this kind of backbone philosophically for the United States to create and build and just so fresh. And so there's, there's like a bunch of philosophers and writers that I'm quite into in terms of getting inspiration. And actually I studied Hegel, which is a German philosopher, and he was very much into community and building mutually recognizing community, meaning you're not really you unless you're reflected by another, like, that interaction. So much of this I find in some ways in where I live and in the community that we're building. So those things really guide me. And then in terms of, I did Y-Combinator and I loved it and I found it life-changing as a founder. So, I use kind of that as very much as a repertoire and different folks who write blogs and things out of that community.
Interesting. And do you have any favorite online tools, example, Gmail, Slack, Zoom?
We use all of the above a lot. We specifically manage a lot of the cancer journey through Airtable, which is a unique use case for Airtable. I don't think they have probably, whole end-to-end cancer journeys other than ours in there as a use case. So that's been really interesting. And we initially were going to build database ourselves and then, actually even put money behind it. And we could just take this off the shelf. We will run out of space and, kind of we're maybe already flirting with that. But hey, it's been really good, right? To just start a company and be able to do so much with something off the shelf. Kudos for Airtable.
I'll put that in the show notes. And, I should go back in time when you started working on FidoCure. What is the one thing you would have focused on or done anything differently?
I think I would have, I wasn't as attuned to what a movement this is for pet parents and their passion. That's something we almost stumbled into. I think there's so much there and so much education and such an opportunity to make this to bring all these different voices together of stakeholders and really do team-based medicine, bringing in the pet parent themselves too. So I think this community and just really making it a movement from day one, I would have gone even more in that direction.
Correct. Krishna, what is the best way people can reach out to you and know more about FidoCure?
FidoCure.com. That's easy peasy. Throw in something in a chat, ask to talk to me. I'll be right there and happy to help in any way.
Right. Many congratulations on raising $10 million, and thank you so much for coming onto the show. I really appreciate speaking to you.
Thank you very much. I have to hop. I have another call, but thank you. Take care, Rohit.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Life Self-Mastery podcast, where we teach you how to start and grow your online business. For more information, visit Rohit's blog at www.lifeselfmastery.com.